It was an awkward strike, but the blade had slid in right where he wanted it. This particular location, although difficult to reach, stopped the heart, paralyzed the muscles, and ended life quickly. He preferred that. There was no such thing as instantaneous death, but this was as close as you could come. He paused a beat with his fingertips touching the body, then quickly gutted and dressed the small animal and hung it from his belt. The woods around him continued their soft song, his presence unnoticed in the dark. Listening intently, he rose and padded through the trees. He still had a few hours till dawn, and he intended to make as much distance as possible before he had to find a place to lie up for the daylight hours. He moved deftly, eyes scanning through the starlit brush under the canopy of the trees. He avoided drifts of leaves and tangling roots and hanging branches, his ears alert for any change in the forest. He wasn't listening for a sound, but for any sudden silence that might indicate his presence had been noted. Like the shadow of a breeze, the miles sped beneath his feet. He had gone to ground just before the dawn, settling into the hollow of a fallen tree. The edge of the forest was near, sloping into cleared land that denoted a settlement was nearby. He ran his tongue over the edges of his teeth. They had been filed into sharp points just before he left, and they still ached within his mouth. The memory of the rasp of the file vibrating through his jaw and the bones of his skull still fresh. The discomfort drew his thoughts back to his final briefing. The meeting with the old man where he was given this task. The room, dimly lit and cloying with incense, held others, his seniors, marking this as an important occasion. He was given details and specifics of his target, possible locations, and the expected outcome. He was to be unsheathed. For this mission, he was to be known as Scimitar. This was normal. His name had changed several times over the years, always the name of a weapon. Oddly, it was stressed to him that there could be no failure. This was unusual. He took this to mean that his master was unduly concerned with this task, perhaps nervous. He pushed that thought down. He would examine it later. After being dismissed, he was hooded and robed within moments and awaiting passage off the island. He was well concealed, and so he could examine the building at his leisure. 2 levels, narrow windows on the bottom floor, wider windows on the top, one with a small balcony, well made and well maintained. The external walls would be easy to climb if necessary, being decorated with tiles and reliefs that offered plenty of hand and footholds. He had been watching the target for a few days now, and was frankly astonished that the target was able to survive so long in this world. They dressed flamboyantly and with visible wealth. They appeared to walk through life with no awareness of their vulnerability. Scimitar was aware of seemingly innocuous animals that possessed hidden claws, teeth or spines, or a ferocious temperament, but this target appeared as dangerous as cold gruel. He decided he could wait no longer. He would pay this bowl of gruel a visit tonight. As a minor functionary, Timon was very happy with his lot in life. Nobody expected anything from him at this out-of-the-way post, and nobody seemed to care what he did, which meant he was able to engage in some harmless acquisition of some comforts. He never asked for coin, nobody had any around here, but he did hint that his tunic was uncomfortable or his meals were a little tasteless. Surprisingly, thoughtful gifts turned up at his accommodation quite often. In return, tally marks were sometimes smudged or an official parchment was delayed. Timon was always accessible, which his customers always appreciated. He was often found in his favorite chair at his favorite tea house. Tonight, Timon wiped away the dust of the day with a dampened and citrus-scented cloth. It was very refreshing, a gift. He was looking forward to sampling a new tisane, another gift, and to that end, a small kettle was coming to the boil behind him. The sound of boiling water softened, and Timon frowned. Had the fire gone out? He turned to find himself looking at a denizen of the hells, holding one of his delicate teacups. Timon was not a brave man. He had come to terms with that truth early on in his life and had forgiven himself. Reaching, oh so slowly, for the kettle, he nodded towards the cup in the creature's hand. "Tea?" he asked. Scimitar had never seen such a delicate thing. The walls of the teacup seemed impossibly thin. Was there a hint of translucence? He noticed the delicate tracery of vines, leaves, and flowers painted around the rim, and subtle graduations of colour within the glaze. His fingers, with their calluses, seemed coarse and brutish against the porcelain. His target held his kettle hopefully. He nodded and held the cup out. It was filled with the fragrant tea, and a second cup was found and filled. Timon pulled a low stool to the table and gestured for his visitor to sit. Scimitar felt acutely that he was no longer in control of this encounter, but was strangely curious. Timon fussed at his robes, sipped at his tea, cleared his throat, fussed again at his robes, and then looked expectantly. His visitor was a nightmare vision walking. Long, complicated braided hair, heavily tattooed and scarred features. As he sipped at his tea, Timon saw sharp-pointed teeth and shivered involuntarily. Scimitar spoke softly. 4 years ago, an officer, good at their job, resigned. While surprised at this inquiry, Timon's memory immediately filled in the pertinent facts. 12 years' service, commended 3 times, command of a 60, reliable, highly competent, wounded in the Pharaoh skirmish, resigned. No ceremony. He had handled the administration. "Yes?" he asked, sipping his tea. Scimitar sipped again at his tea. It really was very nice. Their last patrol, location. Timon searched his memory and then indicated a wall-mounted map of the area, beautifully drawn and quite detailed. Asking permission, he rose and pointed at 2 places on the map. "We're currently here. If you follow this river to the north, the officers' patrol was to start here and finish up here at the border." He swallowed nervously. "Are you familiar with maps and how to read them?" Scimitar rose smoothly, and Timon was reminded of a large, predatory cat he had seen at a menagerie. "This blue line is the river near town. This colour and pattern are hills to the north?" Timon nodded. Quickly grasping the concept, Scimitar was impressed with the idea of a drawing of the land. A long-forgotten memory arose of a woman bending down and saying, "Say please." Scimitar turned to Timon. "May I have this, please?" Timon was shocked. "Technically, it belongs to the office." Timon looked at the pointed teeth. "But I suppose nobody would miss it." He quickly removed the map from the wall and rolled it up before handing it over. Scimitar paused at the door. "Thank you for the tea," and was gone. Timon exhaled a long breath. On trembling legs, he crossed to the table and poured himself another tea with hands that shook. He decided that now was a very good time to try some of those honeyed fruits that had been given to him, as a gift, of course,